Which is stronger, love or death? This question is like an echo that travels through generations. You may have asked yourself this question, even without realizing it. Maybe it was in a moment of pain after losing someone. Maybe it was in a moment of fullness, looking into the eyes of someone you love and thinking, what is this force that makes me feel so much? Most people avoid thinking about it, some because they are afraid of the answer, others because they believe certain things should never be questioned. And there are also those who think they already know the truth, but deep down, they're just repeating inherited phrases, never really put to the test. I, on the other hand, didn't want second-hand answers. I didn't want explanations from poets who embellish pain too much to make it bearable, nor from philosophers who rationalize what cannot be explained, nor from scientists who measure everything, but forget that not every phenomenon fits into numbers. I wanted the truth bare, raw, without makeup, without hope, without fear. The truth that only someone who has seen everything could give me. And who, in the world, or beyond it, has seen more than death? She was there when the first love was born, and also when it died. She was present in eternal vows and in broken promises. She saw wedding rings shine under the sunlight and then roll across a cold floor. She witnessed tears of farewell and silences that said more than 1,000 words. She is not fooled by romantic stories. She is not swayed by happy endings. She is not moved by hastily written letters or flowers left at the door. She knows when a love is real and when it has already died, even if the two involved insist on staying alive. So I went to her. I can't say how or where. Maybe it was in a dream. Maybe in a place that exists only between one breath and the next, where reality, all I remember is a cold that didn't come from the wind, and a silence so absolute that any sound felt like an invasion. It was there that I asked the question, direct, without detours. Which is stronger, love or you? The next moment, I realized that this question wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone who had ever lived and loved, to everyone who had ever lost someone or something. It was a question carrying the weight of thousands of years and billions of stories. And I was about to hear the answer,
as if it sat in front of me and stared into my eyes. The kind of silence that isn't empty, it's full. Full of memories that aren't mine, of stories I haven't lived, but that somehow were right there in front of me, condensed. I felt as if I were standing before an infinite library, where each book was a life and each page held a lost love. She seemed to be choosing in which one she would find the answer. And then she laughed. It wasn't a loud, showy laugh. It wasn't a laugh of mockery. It was something deeper, almost intimate, a brief, muffled sound that seemed to hold centuries of irony and understanding. I froze, laughing at a question like that. It was like asking a doctor if life is worth living, and hearing him burst into laughter. You asked me about love, and I laughed. Her voice didn't echo. It was as if every word fell straight into my mind without passing through the air. I laughed because everyone fears me, but love always gets there first. I frowned She went on. It destroys faster, deeper, and sometimes it spares me the work. A chill ran down my spine. We all grow up believing death is the worst thing that can happen. But to her, it's not. In fact, to her, the work is often already done when she arrives. And not by disease, tragedy, or accident, but by love. It was in that moment that I realized the enemy that breaks us most isn't the one that comes at the end. It's the one that's been beside us from the start. Almost always, when I arrive, you are already broken, said death. And the pieces I find carry the name and face of someone you loved and lost. Those words fell on me like stones. It was as if suddenly my whole life had rearranged itself in my mind, revealing a pattern that had always been there, but I had never seen. Love doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. At first, it's light, sweet, almost unnoticeable. A glance, a conversation that suddenly feels impossible to end. A touch that awakens something you didn't even know was asleep. And then it grows. It spreads. It fills every corner of you. It seeps into your plans, your mornings, your silences. And when you realize it, you no longer know where you end and the other begins. And it is precisely because it takes up so much space that when it leaves, it takes parts of you that never come back. But don't think this only happens when someone dies. No, love can leave long before. It can slip away slowly without anyone noticing. It dies in the silence of conversations that no longer happen, in the absence of touch, of laughter, of eyes meeting, in the feeling that what you once had is no longer there and may never return. And it's in that moment, not when death comes, that many of us begin to die inside. No cut, no illness, no accident is needed to destroy us. Just the slow draining of. At that point, death merely collects what's already gone. The real work was already done by absence. But, as she revealed next, there is an even crueler way to die. And it happens while you're still standing, breathing, pretending you're alive. Love can kill long before life ends. That sentence, spoken by death, echoed inside me like distant thunder. Because deep down, I knew it was true, and you probably do too. It doesn't need a coffin. It doesn't need flowers, candles, or formal farewells. Sometimes death arrives almost invisibly, so quietly you only realize it when you're already living inside it. It can hide in a good morning that never came, in a message left unanswered, even after hours staring at your phone, in a gaze that was once a refuge, but is now only a dull, cold reflection, as if the person is there, but has already left on the inside. Death told me, "You think you know me, but you confuse my arrival with the absence of love." And when she said that, how many times have we said goodbye to someone who is still alive? How many times have we buried feelings in silence, continuing our routine as if nothing had happened? There are couples who still share the same roof, but live separated by invisible walls, built brick by brick, with a lack of affection, attention, and truth. There are friendships that still exist in name, but have no soul left. There are families who greet each other at dinner, but haven't looked into each other's eyes for years. These are the cruelest deaths, because in them there is no end, and without an end, there is no new beginning. It's a death that breathes, and with every breath, it reminds you that what was once alive is no longer there. And the worst part? This death is invisible to outsiders. Only those who live it know the weight of waking up next to a warm body, but a distant soul. Only those who feel it understand what it's like to talk for hours and hear nothing real. What it's like to smile, to keep up appearances, while inside, life is slipping away like sand through your fingers. Death said something that marked me deeply. What you call the end, for me, is often just a formality. The real end comes first, and it is love that brings it. And I thought of how many times I had seen that happen. People who waste away slowly, not from lack of air, but from lack of an embrace. Not from lack of heartbeat, but from lack of warmth. Not from illness in the body, but from abandonment in the soul. Physical death can be quick, even merciful, but the death caused by the absence of love is slow, relentless, and sometimes lasts decades. And that, death knows, is something even she could never do as well. It was then that she told me about the price we all pay from the day we are born for daring to love. Love builds and destroys at the same time. That's how death began this part of the conversation. I looked at her, trying to find contradiction in that sentence, but I couldn't. Because it's impossible to deny. Love can raise cathedrals inside us, sacred places where we feel protected, invincible, almost eternal. But it can also tear those cathedrals down in a single breath, leaving only the rubble of what we once were. It's like fire, she said. It warms, it lights, it gives meaning, but it consumes everything it touches. And that's when I realized something I had never thought of before. Every love comes with an invisible clause, a silent promise no one reads, but everyone signs the moment they decide to love. That clause says, everything you love will one day change or end. Maybe quickly, like a flame that suddenly goes out. Maybe slowly, like a candle burning to the end, consuming every drop of wax. But inevitably, the end will come. And still, we accept it. We laugh, dance, make promises, even knowing that for every moment of euphoria, there will be another of loss. Even knowing that for every passionate kiss, there will be a cutting silence. You start paying the day you are born, she said. Every laugh, every touch, every memory carries a debt that will be collected. And this debt is not paid in money or possessions. It is paid in sleepless nights, in silent tears, in sighs that find no answer. It is paid in memories that hurt so much you wish you'd never lived them, yet can't imagine who you would be without them. I thought of my own loves, my own lost pieces. I realized that all of them shaped me, but also stole something I will never get back. And that's what makes the price of love so high. It is never refunded.
What you give stays given forever. Death looked at me and said something that undid me. You don't understand. The pain you feel is not a flaw in love. It is the proof it existed. And then I saw the cruelty and beauty of that equation. If it doesn't hurt, it was never love. If it doesn't cost, it was never real. And if it doesn't change who you are, then maybe it wasn't worth it. But the most disturbing part came after, when she revealed that love and death are not opposites, but allies. I had always thought love and death were opposing forces, one creating, the other destroying, one beginning stories, the other ending them, white and black, light and shadow. But death just looked at me like someone watching a child try to explain the world with too few words. And then she said, "We are not enemies. We are allies." I felt the sentence settle inside me like a heavy stone. She wasn't there to provoke. She was simply stating something that had always been true, but that most of us never notice. I arrive when love ends, but often it's love that calls me, she continued. I am the last chapter. He is the ones before. But without him, my work would have no meaning. Then she made me see something that sent shivers through me. Death does not steal love. She eternalizes it. Love does not destroy death. It prepares it. Love and death walk together like two artisans shaping the same piece. One with warm hands, the other with cold. Love builds. Death seals. Love writes. Death signs. Love lights. Death extinguishes. But in that extinguishing, the flame leaves the mark of its light. I thought of the great moments in my life. They all had these two presences: the embrace at a reunion, the fear of losing it, the passionate kiss, the awareness it would not last forever, the birth of someone we love, and the certainty that one day we will also say goodbye. Death spoke with an almost maternal calm. You spend your lives trying to flee from me and throwing yourselves into the arms of love. But in the end, I am the one who gives value to what you love. It's because time is finite that you rush to feel. And there I saw the irony. If there were no death, love would be nothing but routine. Without the risk of ending, it would lose its glow, its urgency, its intensity. Love needs death like flame needs oxygen, not to survive, but to burn brighter while it lasts. And at that moment, death almost smiled. In the end, I don't take your love away. I only turn it into eternity. What dies is the body, the habit, the touch. But what was felt, that I do not touch. That belongs to him, not me. And it was in that moment that I realized the question I had started with, about which is stronger, might never have an answer, because they were never against each other. They had always played together. I knew we were nearing the end of the conversation. There was nothing more to ask, but still something to hear. It was as if every word death had spoken so far was part of a circle, and I was finally returning to the starting point. I took a deep breath. The question that had brought me there was still alive inside me, pulsing. Which is stronger, love or death? She looked at me,
or maybe pierced through me, with that gaze that doesn't come from eyes, but from something deeper. And for a moment, I was afraid of the answer, because after all I had heard, I realized either possibility would be devastating. If it were love, it would mean we are all doomed to suffer more than death itself could cause. If it were death, it would mean nothing we love truly has the power to last. But when she spoke, it was neither. You asked the wrong question. I was confused. She came closer, and even without a body, I felt her presence as if the air had grown denser around me. There is no which is stronger. We do not fight. We do not compete. We do not want to destroy each other. We dance. And when she said, "we dance," my mind filled with images. Love and death, spinning in an invisible ballroom. Sometimes pulling apart, sometimes touching, but always in perfect sync. One leading, the other following, until they switch roles without anyone noticing. Love gives meaning to my existence. I give value to his. Without me, he would be shallow. Without him, I would be empty. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or defeated, because it wasn't the answer I expected, but it was the only one that made sense. Death looked at me, or wrapped herself around me, I'm not sure, and finished. You humans spend your lives running from my name and into his arms, without realizing we are always in the same place. And when you finally find us together, you call it a story. And that's when I realized maybe the strongest isn't either of them, but the moment they meet. That moment when love is alive, but already feels the weight of its own end. That instant when a goodbye kiss is deeper than any kiss that came before, precisely because you know it will be the last. Maybe that's what makes us human, living between these two extremes, knowing neither can be avoided. Loving, even knowing it will end. Holding, even knowing you will let go. Giving yourself, even knowing you will lose. When I realized it, death was no longer there. There was no farewell. There didn't need to be. The silence that remained was answer enough. And in that silence, I understood that the question that had brought me there no longer needed answering, because deep down, the strength lies in the dance. And as long as it lasts, so do we.